So on the evening of December 22nd, a single piece of news just exploded across Nepal. A meeting was happening, a meeting between two of the country's most talked about political figures. And just like that, the rumors started, speculation was everywhere, and for a few days, the entire nation was just hooked on gossip.
Well, those rumors, they turned out to be true. And that's exactly what we're breaking down in this explainer. That political earthquake. The formation of this totally groundbreaking and, yeah, pretty controversial alliance between Rabi Lamichhane, Balen Shah, and, as we'll see, a later twist involving Kulman Ghising. It's a move that promises to reshape Nepal's future, but the big question is, how?
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the political shakeup itself and how people reacted right away. Then we'll dive into the details of their 7-point agreement. After that, we'll get into the huge promises they're making and the even bigger questions that come with them. We'll also put the leaders themselves under the microscope. And finally, we'll ask that one massive question. Is this a genuine new era, or is it just the same old politics with a shiny new label? Okay, let's start with how this all actually happened. What started out as just whispers about a meeting between Rabi Lamichhane and Kathmandu's mayor, Balen Shah, very quickly turned into a formal 7-point agreement. And believe me, this wasn't some quiet handshake. It was a public declaration that basically split the country right down the middle. I mean, the second this news dropped, it was like a line was drawn in the sand. On one side, you've got the hopefuls. They look at this alliance and see the answer, the perfect cure for decades of corruption and political stagnation. But on the other side are the skeptics. They look at the same deal and see another flawed power grab, a coalition built around big personalities, not solid principles. All right, let's move past the reactions and get into the real substance. What is this alliance actually built on? Well, the foundation is this 7-point agreement. So let's break down some of the most crucial promises they're making. First up, and you got to admit, this was a really smart political play. The alliance immediately took ownership of the recent Gen Z movement, that powerful youth-led protest demanding justice for victims of loan sharks and corruption. And see, this is where their strategy really shines. The old political parties either ignored the movement or played both sides. But this new alliance, they stepped right in and positioned themselves as the only group that's actually listening to the demands of a new generation. It was a masterstroke. Second, they've laid out a national goal that is, well, it's incredibly ambitious. It's the kind of big picture vision that's designed to capture everyone's imagination. Think about that. A promise to completely transform the nation in just 1 decade. This is the absolute heart of their appeal. It's a powerful, exciting vision. But as we're about to see, the details on how they'll get there are a little thin. And this next one might be the most important part of the original deal. Point 4 laid out a really clear formula for how they plan to share power. So, this was the original blueprint. Super simple. Rabi Lamichhane, the organizer, would run the party as central president, and Balen Shah, the popular mayor, was set to be the future prime minister. It was a clear, powerful vision. Rabi runs the party, Balen runs the country. But whenever you have promises this big, you're bound to have even bigger questions. And once you start digging past the headlines of this agreement, you hit a wall of uncertainty. This is where all that initial excitement starts to get a little complicated. So much of their messaging is about replacing the old guard, right? Sweeping out the politicians who've been in charge for decades. But that begs a really fundamental question. Is getting rid of a few familiar faces really enough to fix the deep systemic problems the country is facing?
And this, right here, this might be the biggest gap in their entire platform. It's one thing to promise a middle-income nation. That's the easy part. But where's the actual plan? The specifics on economic policy, on how to reform a bureaucracy that's famously resistant to change, on how to stop Nepal's best and brightest from leaving the country. Without a roadmap, they're just words.
Okay, so moving beyond the policy questions, this alliance has another huge hurdle to clear, and it's an internal one. It's all about the clashing personalities and leadership styles of the people at the very top. Can these very different individuals actually work together? And man, you really couldn't have picked 2 more different styles. On one hand, you've got Rabi Lamichhane. He's the charismatic public speaker, the guy who can build a movement with a microphone. And on the other hand, there's Balen Shah, the quiet, almost mysterious operator who avoids the media and works from behind the scenes. And let's be real, Balen's style as mayor has already raised some red flags. His decisions often feel impulsive. He's almost totally inaccessible to the press, preferring to communicate through these aggressive, one-way social media blasts. It's led a lot of critics to ask if this solitary, combative approach is really the right fit for a prime minister who has to build consensus and engage in diplomacy. And it's not just the leaders. The party itself is facing some serious heat. Accusations have been flying that Rabi's party, the RSP, actually manipulated its own primary elections, pushing aside candidates who were popular with voters to make way for more elite, well-connected people. That raises some pretty tough questions about their commitment to the democratic principles they say they're fighting for. So just when everyone thought they had a handle on this new political landscape, bam, the alliance dropped another bombshell. They added a third heavyweight to the team, a move that completely blew up the original deal and changed the entire dynamic all over again. Kulman Ghising joined the alliance. Now, if you're not from Nepal, you need to understand, this guy is a national hero. He's the man famous for ending the country's chronic, soul-crushing power cuts. But his entry came with a huge catch. The whole power structure got reshuffled. And that crucial clause, the one naming Balen Shah as the future prime minister, it was deleted. Just gone. All of a sudden, Balen's path to the top was no longer guaranteed. And all of this brings us to what might be the most important takeaway here, a feeling best summed up by the organizational psychologist Adam Grant. In a country that is so desperate for change, it's really easy for public support to turn into blind faith. And that, right there, is a very dangerous path to go down. So ultimately, this new alliance puts a really profound choice directly to you, the voter. This isn't just about picking a new leader or a new party anymore. It's about deciding what kind of supporter you're going to be. Are you going to offer your support but also demand accountability? Will your vote be for a personality, or will it be for the principles and values that you want to see define your country's future? That's the real question here.